Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
For reference, I'm 30 female, and this guy looked about 35 to 40 male. I was driving home on the highway, and there was a van in front of me. I was behind this van for several miles before I decided to pass. It was a 4-lane highway, so no vehicles, or anything that would come in front of me. I was having no problem passing this guy. As soon as I make it almost to the point of me fully passing him, he speeds up. So I proceeded to speed up, 'cause I don't understand. I'm clearly trying to pass. He speeds up to be right beside my car and keeps gesturing and waving at me almost to signal me to pull over. I floor it and pass the guy, keeping speed to just get away from him. I see him slow down and kind of wave at me almost like a bye or hello type of wave. Then, a few seconds after, speeds up, goes to the passing lane and speeds up right next to my car. He motions again, almost like asking me to pull over. He's pointing to himself and pointing to me. I literally flip this guy off, and he won't speed up. I slow down, he slows down. I speed up, he speeds up. I tried slamming my brakes to lose him and nothing. I finally pull my phone out and start recording, and he finally speeds up to pass. I see this guy trying to make a turn exactly where I am, going towards my house. I go the opposite way to a store where I know there will be a lot of people, and stay there for an hour. What the actual fuck? I'm honestly so unsettled. I don't know if this will gain traction, but this has been on my mind ever since it happened. I'm a respiratory therapist that works at a local hospital. I was on my way to work, about less than a mile away from my occupation, when the car in front of me quickly merged into one of the emergency lanes, as if something had just happened. Then he just sat there. No hazards going off, nothing to indicate he planned on moving. I saw 20 minutes before I had to be at work. Assuming this individual may be in distress or having car problems, I decided to be a good Samaritan. I parked on the shoulder of the road and turned on my hazards. We exchanged eye contact and I gestured a wave, rolled down my window and asked, "Are you okay?" He seemed to either have not heard me or ignored me, but he did seem to realize I wanted to help him. He gets out of his car at this point. Keep in mind we are on an extremely busy road. I'm in my work scrubs, which tends to help people relax, knowing they are with a healthcare professional. However, this was different. When he got out of his vehicle, I assumed he would have told me he was in some type of pain or something that caused him to pull over abruptly. He had been driving fine the entire time I was behind him. So I casually get out of my vehicle and walk over to the back end of his car. This is when I officially start a conversation asking if he was hurt. Is something wrong? All the basics. But the thing is, his eyes were cold. He had this body language to him that almost made him seem a little unhinged or skittish. He had not answered any of my questions, so I tried once more asking, "Hey man, we're in the middle of a busy road. Is there something wrong with you or your car or something?" He simply replied, "No." I started to feel the sensation of discomfort, like he wanted to do something to me, but was restraining himself. So I continued to play it off. He didn't seem drunk or high, but he had these black beady eyes that I couldn't stop looking at. It was as if he was just a vessel to something dark. I tried to continue the conversation. "Why did you stop, man? You don't want to get hit out here." He replies, "I don't know. I don't know where to go." I didn't know what he meant by this, so I questioned further by saying, Do you know what city you're in right now? If you're lost, I can tell you where the nearest highway is, which was also less than a mile away. His reply was a little chilling. Anywhere but here. I was now confused. He didn't know where he was but felt the urge to get out of the area as quick as possible. So I asked, well, what direction are you wanting to go? 75 north will take you to Dayton. You take 75 south, you'll head to Cincinnati. He asks, what would you do in my position? Now I have no idea what he meant by this. I simply said, I don't know what kind of position you're in, man. Can you drive? The hospital I work for is within view, and we don't have to go in. I just want to make sure you don't get hit. He agrees to follow me, but once I turn on my blinker to turn into the hospital, he completely stopped following me, pulled a U-turn, and sped off. I know this isn't the creepiest thing in the world, but you really have to try to understand how foreign and strange this behavior was. Each time we engaged in conversation, it was as if he was contemplating to tell me something, but ultimately remained silent. A few years ago, my sister decided to have a surprise 30th birthday for her husband. Since he missed his senior prom, she decided to make the theme of a party and even booked the same hall as prom was hosted in when he was a teenager. Problem is, my brother-in-law grew up in basically the middle of nowhere, a small rural town in Missouri that you have to leave the highway and travel down about 5 miles of heavily wooded backroads to get to. On top of being so isolated, there's a rather large heroin problem out there, both using and dealing. It's a pretty potent cocktail, but my sister was determined to have the party there. The party was at 6, and my original plan was to drive out there with my sister and her friends to help set up. My sister was heavily pregnant at the time and needed all the help she could get, and then drive back home with her. However, I got called into work and had to stay until 4, so I told my sister I would drive up there by myself as soon as I was done. She warned me that it was pretty easy to get turned around on those country roads, but I had Google Maps to help me and didn't worry about it. The drive up was fast. It was late September, my favorite time of year, and the scenery was surprisingly pretty. I found the place, no problem, and helped with some last-minute setup before my brother-in-law showed up. The party was a lot of fun, and lasted until about 11 when the hall closed. I was one of the last people to leave, having stayed behind to help my sister and her friends stack chairs. Brother-in-law had overindulged at the open bar and had to be driven home by his friend. We ended up not actually heading out until almost midnight, and by that point, I was exhausted. My sister once again warned me about being careful on the back roads, but I'd gotten up there okay, so I wasn't too concerned about the drive home. I hugged her goodbye, hopped into my car, and started working my way back to the highway. Unfortunately, in my sleepy state, I misjudged which road I was supposed to turn off as I reached the exit for the highway, and ended up turning down an entirely different road that ran parallel to it instead. It was another heavily wooded and narrow back road. I started looking for somewhere I could pull in and turn around. After driving maybe 200 yards, I spotted a gravel embankment and decided to pull in there so I could get turned around. I pulled in and made a sharp U-turn so I could head back up the road, and as I lifted my head to check no one was coming, I saw it in my driver's side mirror, a figure in a blue t-shirt and jeans with long black hair and a pale face, illuminated in my brake lights. My heart jumped into my throat as I gasped in fright, but after a second of pure panic, I realized that the pale face was actually a mask, one of those cheap plastic white ones you get at costume stores. I immediately felt like an idiot. It was almost October, so obviously this was a Halloween decoration. This embankment probably led to someone's driveway, and the family who lived there probably had tons of things just like it in their yard. I took a moment to unclench my hands from the steering wheel and let my heart rate get back to normal, and ended up catching a glimpse of the thing in my mirror again. And I noticed that the embankment didn't lead to a driveway. There was nothing else behind me but tall grass and trees. I briefly wondered why anyone would put a Halloween decoration out in the middle of nowhere. And then, the decoration took a step forward. I slammed on the gas and shot forward, eventually getting back to the main road and on the highway. I don't think I stopped shaking until I reached my town's city limits half an hour later. Looking back, I definitely wasn't in any danger. I was in a car, all the doors were locked, and I could easily have run down whoever that creep was if they tried anything. If they'd gotten even one step closer when panic mode set in, that's probably what I would have done. It was probably just a kid or local druggie in a creepy mask, giving motorists a good scare, and not really thinking about the consequences. But still, it was definitely one of the creepiest moments of my life. And I'm still nervous driving down secluded country roads at night these days. This happened years ago when I was around age 19 or 20 and worked retail part-time at the mall. I was the closing shift that night and left around 10:30 p.m. to head home. I often took inside streets versus the freeway, which included a small stretch of back road that was usually pretty empty, especially during that time of night. This particular night, I noticed a car about 10 minutes into my 30-minute drive, going the same way as me, but I didn't think much of it. As we're approaching the stretch of back road that's usually deserted at that time, the driver behind me starts flashing their high beams and slowing down / speeding up while tailgating me. I remember feeling panic that they might hit my car. Eventually, the car pulls up beside me, and now I could see a middle-aged man who is pointing towards the back of my car, motioning for me to roll my window down. I roll my window down about halfway, and he says something about how my tire looks like it's flattening, and I'm going to damage the rim if I don't pull over soon. I tell him I don't know how to change a tire, but I'm not too far from home, so I should be fine. But he's pretty insistent about how it will only take a few minutes, and he is happy to help. I know something is off because my car seems to be driving fine. I politely say I'm fine, but thanks anyways, and roll up my window. He drives next to me for what feels like forever, but it couldn't have been more than another minute or so. At this point, feeling something's off, I'm afraid to even physically look in his direction. I focus on the road the best that I can, and eventually he slows down and moves behind me again. After a few minutes, we reach a more populated, well-lit part of town, and I see him make a U-turn. I get home and take a look, and my tire is perfectly fine. I have no idea if he followed me from that mall or what that man's intentions were, but I think it's safe to say they weren't anything good. I even had my dad check all my tires the next morning, and the tire pressure on them was in a normal range. I still think of this night from time to time, and it makes me nauseous to think about how different things might be today if I had decided to pull over that night. This happened about a month ago, and it still comes up in conversation because we genuinely just don't know what happened or was about to happen to us. It was around 7 p.m. in November, so it was past dark in Metro Detroit. I was driving and my fiance was riding passenger. We were exiting a pretty populated highway when we turned onto a mile road near the city's shopping mall and outlet centers. Being in close proximity to the mall, it was strange the boulevard was that empty at that time of night. So we're driving on the deserted westbound side of the boulevard when we noticed that there was a stopped/running vehicle in the middle lane. Again, it was dark aside from the streetlights that lined the road every 80 yards or so. But their brake lights were obviously lit, and we were approaching quick. My fiance and I were talking in the car at the time when we both kind of stopped to verbally question what we were both seeing. It was strange behavior, especially since the speed limit was 40 to 50 miles per hour on this mile road. You don't want to be stopped, especially this close to people exiting the highway. So we slowed down since we're cautious drivers. We approached and passed the vehicle in the far left lane, as it was in the middle and we were about a car length in front of it. The driver gunned it and started speeding up to catch us. We never left our left-hand lane, but at this point, I was braking because, again, the behavior was off, and we noticed their driving was sporadic. Braking was almost instinctual, as much as it probably wasn't safe to do. Continuing the drive down this mile road, still no traffic we could see in either direction. We noticed the driver was swerving their car between the middle lane and the left lane, as if trying to intentionally sideswipe us. Instant red flag. It wasn't like the driver was intoxicated or texting, and just doing a poor job to stay in their lane. This was a driver in control of their swerving and coming dangerously close to hitting the side of my Jeep, going 40 miles per hour. Bad vibes. Before we knew it, we were blinded by a spotlight coming from the driver's window into my car via the passenger window. I have 20 tints on my Jeep windows, which usually help control the brightness of the sun most mornings and evenings. And even with the tints, the spotlight stunned us, and we couldn't see anything but white. I didn't have time to check my mirrors before slamming on my brakes. Not sure I would have even been able to see in my mirrors after being blinded. I remember my fiancé screaming, "What the fuck?" We opened our eyes and the driver was yards ahead of us, speeding to get away. I had my fiancé dial 911 immediately. I don't take bullshit, so I started racing down the road to catch up to him for a license plate number. In Michigan, we have Michigan left turn lanes, and I could see the vehicle up ahead turning into one to enter the mall parking lot, which is a huge roundabout. The roundabout's speed limit is approximately 25 miles per hour, with frequent stop signs and intersections. My fiancé connected with dispatch on the phone, as I was trying desperately to catch up to this vehicle. They were blowing every red light and stop sign in sight. Dispatch recommended we don't follow, but I kind of did anyways, because I was really upset and committed to grabbing their plate number, but from a safe distance and at a safe speed. No way was I going to tail this person when we didn't know if they had a weapon or something. Long story short, this driver knew we were following them, and they were speeding through the roundabout, cutting drivers off and blowing intersections, when we lost sight of them. At this point, the police said the cops in the area were already on their way looking for the vehicle that we described, and that we should leave it to them. We weren't going to jeopardize our safety and the safety of other drivers just because I was pissed, so we stopped our chase but still crossed an intersection into another shopping center across the street. We saw the driver enter. We figured we could prowl instead of chase in case we saw them again. We never found that car again, never found out who the driver was, what his motive was, or if the cops found him. We knew it was a male driver because we saw him through his driver's side window before he blinded us. White male, dark ball cap. He drove a dark sedan. Looked like a newer Ford Fusion. It was a close run-in, and I'm not sure what would have happened if he had successfully crashed into us on that deserted mile road, or if his spotlight had successfully veered my car off the road. We don't think this was a case of road rage, since we didn't do anything to provoke him. To the dude who scared the crap out of us, and took away our eyesight while driving a moving vehicle. Middle finger emoji. I moved out of state into a very small town. First day of moving in, a neighbor walking his dog greets me and introduces himself to me. Gives me a quick rundown that the neighborhood is filled with tweakers and other shady types. I took that as a general warning that may be all I'll deal with. A few months later, he invited me over to his place to teach me how to do some woodwork. As we're making a shelf for my cat to sit on, he's asking me questions. To me, they were normal, everyday questions. But looking back, I realize now that he was trying to get information out of me. Why did you move out here from out of state? Who lives with you? Do you have any other family members in the area or state? Once we were done, we went to install the shelf, and he met my mom, who stays with me. He talks to her for a bit, and when we left to walk back to his place, he starts telling me that he could see our yard from his place, and notices that I barely go outside with my dogs. Told me not to worry, that if someone breaks into our place, that he can see them and shoot them from his room. That's when I'm thinking, how is that possible? Because you live over a half a block away. Before I can question him, He asks if I want to see more of the town. I'm like, yeah, let's go. He walks to his car and pulls something out from the middle compartment, and then tells me to go in his pickup truck. So I do, while he's filling the gas tank up with gasoline. Once he's done, he walks to the driver's side and opens the door, and drops a holster between us. He tells me not to worry about it, as I look trying to see if he has a gun or not. As we're driving, I realized he hasn't said a word for 5 minutes, and this guy loves to hear his own voice. Another thing I noticed is that we're on a dirt road, and haven't seen a single house, trailer, or vehicle for a while. I guess I gave off some nervous vibes, because he suddenly goes, so yeah, unless you know where you're going out here, you'll get lost, and it's best to have a pickup or ATV to drive out here. After about another 10 minutes of silent driving, we get to a little creek. Luckily, there was another truck there. All he says is, oh, look at that, someone else is here with us. And he grabs his holster and gets out. We both see a lady with a big dog playing in the water. She turns to see us and sees him walking closer to her. She gestures to his holster and he tells her not to worry, that it's for the snakes. She lifts her shirt above her waist to show her gun, and she tells him she's not worried one bit. They talk for a few minutes, and she tells him that her husband is home waiting for her to make dinner, and she's just out letting the dog have some playtime. The neighbor changes his tone and posture from confident to defensive now. She called her dog and they went back to their truck. He's watching her, and she hasn't started her truck yet. A few minutes pass, and he tells me I guess it's time we go too. When we get to his truck, she drives off. The drive back, I start to get uneasy and creeped out. Why would he drive me all the way out there just to leave? Why tell me not to worry about the holstered gun, but tell the lady what it's for? I finally get out of my head and just break the silence and give him my life story as of why I moved. Finally, he responds that he can relate to my story and gives me the rundown of how his town is and what it's about. Once we get back to his place, I tell him I have stuff to take care of at home, and nope the hell out of there. I said to myself if I'm ever going to hang out with him again, it won't be alone. If you would like to submit your stories, please check out the Panic Within subreddit. I go over those stories that are submitted, and I go ahead and I narrate them. I say go over, but I narrate all of them. So if you are interested in something like that, go ahead and take a look in the description, and you'll find the link there. We also have a Discord. You can come and hang out and get spooky with me and other narrators. We post new content, up-and-coming videos, promotions, and we also just hang out and chat, and you can come and hang out with us there. If you're interested in that, link is also in the description below. And last but not least, if you are interested in doing a collab with the King of Panic or myself, you can absolutely reach out. If you're another creator, you can do one on our channel, we can do one with you. We are completely open for collab as of right now. Looking for new stuff to do and very excited for anybody who reaches out. The best way to do that is through Twitter or Discord. I do check Instagram and I will get back. It just might take a little longer because I'm super bad at that, but I've been trying to be better. So if you do reach out there, even if it takes a couple days, I'll be there. But like I said, we're excited, so please definitely reach out, and we're looking forward to it. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour. Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.